grandma, TT, stepmom, or mother. There are so many women and female role models that play an integral role in our lives, from helping to boost our self-esteem to checking us when we get out of line. These women deserve their flowers for helping us to become who we are today. So, on this episode of A Balanced Life, we are talking about the women in our lives and why we love them. Joining us for this conversation is Deborah Bell, Dr. Sheree Watkins, Dr. Erin Bishop, and the mother of all mothers, Charlotte Avery. Come on in, everyone. Hello, everyone. How are we doing today?
Hey, y'all. Hey.
Absolutely. Now, I had to say the mother of all mothers, Charlotte Avery, let me get it right, the wife of one, the mom of
7.
And the mom of one fur baby?
One fur baby now, yes.
Absolutely. The mother of all mothers. Okay. Now, as we wrap up the month of May and talking about all things mom, the conversation wouldn't be complete if we didn't highlight the women and female role models who might not be our biological mothers, but serve as mother figures and are just as integral to our lives. So let's start this conversation by identifying who these women are and why we love them. Now, I'm going to give y'all a moment to think. Okay, I'm going to jump on this one first. Give y'all a moment to think. And I'm going to kick us off. And I have a list. I'm sure, like all of us do. I have a list of women because I truly stand on the shoulders of giants. But my Medea, that when we actually call her Medea, my grandmama, my Medea, that's my girl. That's my girl. I was primarily raised by my grandmother, who is a 92-year-old whippersnapper. Let me just tell you. So there are so many reasons why she is my girl, from the things she taught me to her being my very first speaking coach. But the thing that was most pivotal is how she created a safe space for me just to be. In my mistakes, when I was wrong, when I'm right, I knew that she would be right there loving me no matter what. Even if she had to tell me a hard truth and put a hard switch to my behind because of my hard head, And it's because of this that I have the confidence to try new things, do hard things, venture out into the world, because I knew that even if I fail or completely fell down, I knew that I had that safe space in her where I could always go back, get exactly what I needed to get back up again. So she's one of my list of many of the women that without her, I wouldn't be who I am today. So now tell me, who's on your list?
So let me tell you one person on my list. One of the first people that I can ever think of outside of my mom, her name is Betty Richter. And man, oh man, she came into my life at such a pivotal time. She was my 9th grade math teacher. She was one of the first African-American teachers I ever had in school, and she was sharp. And she still is sharp. But let me tell you something. She was my hiding place and my saving grace when I was in school, all the way through high school, actually. And even after I graduated, she was one of the most incredible women. She was one of those women who came to work in a suit, and she was not playing. She was just so incredible. And not only did she make me feel safe at school, she was my venting place where, if I was just having a moment where I just needed to go off and vent, she was there for me. If I was having some craziness going on at home, she was there for me. And there were times when she would allow me to come to her home that was miles away from my house. But I'm telling you, everything about her was safe. It was warm. And she was just incredible. And I'm going to tell you something. Had it not been for her, I don't know if I would have really successfully made it through high school. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be who I am without Betty Richter in my life. And I believe that every student, especially now, I'm a mom, I have kids and, all the things, but I always pray that my children will have that one person or maybe even two people at school that can be their safe place. And thus far, my children have been able to have that, because sometimes we just can't talk about some things with our parents or what have you or whatever. And sometimes things happen in school where our kids need to be able, if their counselor is not available, if the school social worker is not available, they need to have somebody who will give them a human touch and will love them. And so that was Betty Richter for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Charlotte, I'm sorry, Charlotte. Is that why you go to the school suited and booted? Because of Miss Richter?
You know what? I would tell you what, she is one reason why I know how to show up, for school meetings, because, I'm dropping off lunch me and I'm coming to handle business me is not the same person.
Right.
So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Dr. Watkins, go ahead.
So there were two people that was very pivotal to me. And one was earlier on and one was actually in college. Earlier on, there was Miss Sylvia. Miss Sylvia was the Girls and Boys Club director in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, off of Martin Luther King, right down the street from Winston-Salem State University. We went to the Girls and Boys Club from kindergarten all the way up until like about the 3rd and 4th grade. And it's being latchkey kids, the Boys and Girls Club was pivotal for me and my twin sister's education and also for our development. We learned to double dutch. We learned to really fall in love with books. We learned how to really just navigate learning about social cues and development. And it kept us out of trouble. Miss Sylvia saw something in us and helped us to develop as young girls. And I never forget, my mom ran into her probably about a year ago. She now is the regional director for Boys and Girls Club in the Winston-Salem, Greensboro district. And somehow she still remembers me and my twin sister. And so, and we still remember her. And then later in college, it was Toya Jacobs. She was pivotal in helping to see something in me and my twin sister in college, because we were 4.5 hours away. We were lost at a PWI, and we felt like we was alone. And probably within that first semester, we was like, we are going back home. This is not for us. We did not feel like we belonged. We did not feel like we fit in. And she gathered us and said that we're going to make sure that you're okay and that you find a home here at East Carolina University. And she made us feel welcome. She made sure that we had connections, made sure that we knew how to get to advising, because as being first gen, we had no clue how to navigate higher education systems. And so it was important that those two women who were college educated help us to see that there was more than just what was beyond what we can see within our own homes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Dr. T, for me, there are two women also. So one was Miss Herdesing Jones. She was our choir director in high school. Miss Herdesing Jones had a way of boosting students' self-confidence. And she did that for me in so many ways. Not only that, but she was also one of the first spiritual advisors outside of my home. And she made sure that we were walking the straight and narrow. But her influence in my life led all into my college years, where she continued to follow me. I went to Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. And there she had a protege of hers to keep up with me and other students. But during high school, she would often invite us to her church. And it was not just an invitation. She expected us to show up on a Friday night when we were in high school to services at her church. But those years and her influence helped me to really develop, not just as a young woman, but also in my spiritual life, and helped to direct my close relationship with God and a full knowledge of how to live out that relationship as I engage with others, and she demonstrated that for us. The second person in my life would be in my first corporate job. I worked for an outplacement firm, and this firm at the time I came was not doing very well. So they sent in a support system for us. Ollie Stevenson. Ollie was an African-American female in a male white dominated environment, but she was strong. She had great influential leadership. And she knew how to develop others. And so her influence in my life led into this latter years. And in fact, I met her in 2000 and we're still friends today. So her influence has been just pivotal, because I remember one of the things that she told me in that environment was this: if you want to succeed, you need to understand the culture of this company. And I'm here to make sure that you succeed. And every week she would meet with me and we would talk about meetings that we had gone to. We would talk about connections within the organization. And she taught me just invaluable lessons for my entrepreneurial experience as well as my continued work experience. So those two women had just great influence in my life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Dr. T, I know we're about to rush to break in a minute, but I cannot allow this block of time to go without me talking about someone who was very important to me. And that was my third grade teacher. Mm-hmm. Third grade teacher, her name is Miss Mary Abel. And she was stellar in presentation. She was amazing as a teacher. And everyone knows that third grade is a critical stage or age for a Black male, let alone a Black boy. And everyone around me told me I had behavioral problems. Everybody said I was bad. But you know what she told me? She said, you know, you're beautiful. Mm-hmm. No one had ever told me that up to that point in life. I think, according to my wife, I'm still beautiful, right? So, but Abel, she told me that, and it was not about my outer appearance, it was my inner appearance. It was what I was able to do and the potential of what I could become. Because I did have behavioral issues. I had to have intervention at the age of 9. I had to receive extra work and needed more time to understand the concepts. But she understood there was something brilliant about my Black boy joy, that I was a beautiful Black kid looking to be something great in life. And so Mary Abel was so special to me that this is the story I want to get to. I found out what Valentine's Day is. And I thought that you're supposed to give, your Valentines, your greatest treasures, not just chocolate, maybe, flour. Give her what you have. Well, I went home and I took all of my mother's jewelry, put it in a box, came to school on Valentine's Day and was like, Miss Abel, I got a Valentine's Day gift for you. She looking at all my mama's rings, her earrings, her necklaces. Everything was in a box, and she was looking at me in dismay like, boy, I know you got this from. So she immediately called my mom. My mom came marching down the street all the way into that classroom. And she was like, boy, you done lost your mind. That is how much I love my third grade teacher, and that trajectory has allowed me to have a beautiful life because she told me I was a beautiful Black boy.
I love that.
Okay, Sugar. We do have to take a break, and I probably should warn you that this episode is probably going to pull at your heartstrings in a way and might be a tearjerker. So grab your tissues, take a deep breath, because there is more to come after this. Hey y'all,
y'all. Welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Bria Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Welcome back, sugar. Okay, let's jump back into the conversation. So bring everyone back in as we talk about the women in our lives and why we love them. So now we've identified teachers that we bring all our mama's jewelry to, collegiate counselors, choir directors, professional mentors. We've identified some amazing women that have helped us along the way, right? So now I want to talk about, why are they important? Why is it important for us to have this community of women in our lives?
I believe it is really, really important because there is something about, there's a beauty and a strength and a validation and a nurturing, I think, that can only come not just from a woman, but from the right woman. Who is just really gifted at looking deeper into who we are beyond the surface of what they see. And for me, the women in my lives who have just impacted me so much, they have been women who have challenged me. They are women who have made me want to dig deeper. They're women who made me want to live right and love right. They're women who just inspired me to be successful. And especially as, you know, a Black girl at that time in my life where I was just kind of wondering, was I going to go to college? Was I just going to go to work? You know, just all the things, even when it came down to things like salvation and things like that. I remember Gladys Dickerson, and this was an older woman who had been almost kind of like a godmother to my mom. But she was bedbound, but she was a missionary from her bed. She couldn't get out that bed, but she was bedbound. And I would go and visit her in DC. And I remember going to visit her one time and her asking me, Charlotte, are you saved? And I said, yes, ma'am. She goes, no, are you good and saved? And I was like, well, what's the difference? And so, you know, she broke it down and I said, yes, ma'am. I feel like I'm good and saved. And just the conversations that we would have, the talks, to see her being able to reach the masses and reach people for the Lord, being right there in her apartment building and in her bed. I mean, for me, being a young person, but also being a woman who, you know, is, you know, who works in ministry and who is a minister and all that. I mean, she just impacted me in such a way. And when I think about those women, I just, oh my gosh, I am who I am. I, like you said, I stand on their shoulders. I really, really do. I really do. And I am so thankful. I'm thankful that we're even having this conversation, because sometimes as we're navigating through life, we sometimes, I don't want to say we forget, but because life is lifing, we don't even like kind of pay homage to those people. And so I'm so glad that we're able to do that today.
One thing I share from a therapy viewpoint is that mothering isn't just biological, it's really communal. And there's a few theories that we pull from, but one of the profound theories that we pull from is what we call attachment theory. Attachment theory says that the bonds that we form with the people around us doesn't have to just come from our parents. Mm-hmm. But the bonds that we form that are safe, that are consistent, that are emotionally available, help us to create these secure attachments, even when the early wounds that can sometimes exist can be nurtured, and also can be recovered, and also can be filled emotionally, spiritually, and even physically by others, from mentors, from grandmothers, from neighbors, from church mothers. And that comes from that communal healing. And so, and it's even sometimes filled by those without even being asked. And that's what we're talking about, that communal healing. And so it's very important for us to understand that these women who have stepped into those spaces help fill those emotional and spiritual gaps in those spaces that were missed and sometimes even fractured. And that's resiliency. And so we have to be thankful for that. Because research continues to show that even outside of our families, they help us to get emotional stability and also with developing that self-worth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if I can add to that a little bit, needing that mother figure, it doesn't have an age limit. So as we're saying that mothering, we're not just talking about when we were kids, it doesn't matter how old you get. We all still need a little mothering. I don't care if you're married, 42, 57, or even if you're a mother yourself. We all need that place and that person where we can go to connect and just get a hug or get a hot plate or just that boost of hope that everything will be okay. So exactly what you said, Dr. Watkins, that communal piece that comes along with that. It doesn't stop when we turn 18 or 20. Right. I'm good and 43 and still I need some mothering, Yes. Absolutely.
This is such a rich conversation because it's causing me to just think about several different people at different times in my life. As you mentioned, Dr. T, not just as a kid, but throughout life. I remember this little old lady who lived next door when I first got married, and she was a widower. And it seemed like she was just in tune with when things were getting a little low in my household, because she'd give me a call and she'd say, Deborah, come to the back door. I got something for you. And she wouldn't just have a couple of items. She would have a tray, silver tray with silver dishes with food that she had prepared herself. And she presented it as though she was presenting it to a dignitary or something. She would have cloth napkins. It was just amazing. She said, baby, I was just thinking about y'all. And little did she know, or maybe she did know, the groceries was a little low that week. And she just stepped right in. It's like she had some type of intuition. Charlotte, you mentioned something, how we're just drawn to certain women at certain times, and it's as though they have intuition. And it seemed like that with that little old lady who lived next door to us. I can recall just being drawn to certain women who seemed to just know intuitively what I needed in that moment, in that time period in my life. And so those sisters, those mothers were just so important to me and filled so many gaps in my life just at the time when I needed them. Working in my corporate environment, I mentioned Ollie Stevenson. Ollie has become just a dear friend. She will challenge me. She will push me, and just at the time that I need, she will also remind me just of who I am and the strength and other qualities that I have for the thing that I'm going through in that time period. So these women, these mothers at different ages and times and spaces in our lives become so pivotal and so important.
Absolutely.
Dr. T, you don't mind if I jump in, do you?
Come on, Dr. Bishop.
You're talking about mothers. I got to jump in because, I still understand what it is to be a mother's baby, right? I'm a mama's boy, okay? The thing I love about my mother is that she just wasn't a backbone. She was the whole bone structure. My mother was special. She had that get it done DNA, She could fix my plate, iron my shirt, and cover me in prayer all by 8 a.m. in the morning. She was just special. And so when I think about the blessing of who my mother was, it's really the resilience of who she was. Like Cardi B did get it right. Cardi B said, if I get knocked down 9, I'm gonna get up 10. My mother got up every day to do the courageous thing of being a Black mother. And did it while being the head of Department of Social Services food distribution. Y'all remember the days when we was eating government cheese and getting that peanut butter? My mother was really in the community just like that. And so because of her, I'm in the community today. The seed and the fruit don't come from a foreign tree. It comes from the tree. And you can tell the tree by the fruit that it bears. So I know a lot of people have something to say, so I'll be quiet. But this is the last thing I'll say. Tupac said it best. I can never repay her, but my plan is to help her understand that she's appreciated. And so my mother, has to always understand, even beyond the grave, that I'm a praiser. Because the Bible says your children shall raise up to call you blessed. Mm-hmm. And that's what may be someone's testimony, that because of your mother's prayers and your mother's love, you're resilient today, more than you ever been in life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is so important. And something I want to highlight that you kind of mentioned here, it takes the strength of a mother to be able to allow other women to come in and fill the gaps where that mom might not be able to be everywhere. And because Charlotte, I know you and Dr. Sheree personally, I've seen both of you do this, where even though like, yes, I'm the mother and that's my child, but let me allow this person to come in, this woman to come in, this coach to come in, this sister, friend, auntie, cousin to come in and fill in the gap where maybe they may feel more comfortable talking to you about, something. I think that takes a strength for a mom to open up to do that, and allow. So maybe your daughter really wants to get into makeup and you're not big on makeup. Hey, come over here and show her how to do this right here. And that's actually one of my real examples. My TT, the only reason I know how to do anything with those brushes is because my TT sat me down and my mom took me to her and was like, show her something, because I don't do all that with all of that y'all be doing. Show her how to do, And so I think I want to applaud the mothers who have that type of strength to say, hey, there's things that I don't necessarily know, but let me bring these other women to build this community around my child so that they can be the best that they can be.
Yeah, if we can, I would really love to touch on that after the break, because I believe that there is so much strength in what you just said. And just because you birth somebody doesn't mean that you have the capacity to do everything involved in raising them. And so I would love, love, love to talk about that.
Absolutely. Your wish is my command. So sugar, we're going to take this quick break, but do not go anywhere, because as you see, we coming right back with Charlotte Avery to touch on what we've just been talking about after this.
We begin tonight with the people who are really running the country right now. Now, Trump is often wrong and misleading about a lot of things, but especially about history. Donald Trump falling in line with President Elon Musk.
In the wake of the unsettling news that MSNBC has canceled Joy Ann Reid's primetime show, The Readout, Roland Martin and the Black Star Network would like to extend an invitation to all of the fans of Joy Ann Reid's MSNBC show to join us every night to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming on the Black Star Network for news, discussion of the issues that matter to you, and the latest updates on the twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald Trump and his unprecedented assault on democracy, as well as co-president Elon Musk's takeover of the federal government. The Black Star Network stands with Joy Ann Reid and all folks who understand the power of Black voices in media. We must come together and never forget that information is power. Be sure to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered weeknights, 6 p.m. Eastern at youtube.com/Roland S. Martin, or download the Black Star Network app.
Welcome back, Sugar. Okay, so we just gonna jump right on back into it, bring everybody back in. Charlotte, we just gonna go right to you so you can pick up right where we left off. Come on, Charlotte.
Thank you, Dr. T. So one thing that you were talking about is moms having the strength and the ability to allow other women or other people in the lives of their children when it comes to raising them. You know, I always say, you know, the common phrase is it takes a village to raise a child. And I say it takes the right village, because everybody's not supposed to be a part of your village, because not everybody in your village is a safe place. Mm-hmm. For me, I have been really blessed. One, I'm a very prayerful person. I'm very security conscious, really because of my husband, but really security conscious when it comes to mostly all things, but especially when it comes to our 7 children. And, you know, I think it's beautiful when a mom can look at the dynamics of who she is, but also be able to look at the dynamics of who their children are, and be able to say, you know what, this child is going on a different path. And like you were talking about, like whether it's makeup or anything, you know, I have kids who, you know, are very STEM related when it comes to science and technology and all of that. I have children who are athletes. I have children who do so many different things, and some things I don't. I have to look at to be able for them to evolve into who God has created them to be. There are times when I've had to be able to look back and say, you know what, I've done what I could do, and now I have to be able to find a different resource for them to be able to grow and develop. For me, it's been coaches, it's been therapists, it's been athletic coaches, it's been tutors, it's been other people, it's been their godparents, people who God has placed in my life and in their lives, because sometimes we don't actually use godparents in the way that we should. But I'm thankful even for the women who are the godparents of my children, who my kids can sometimes call up and be like, listen, I need to talk about X, Y, and Z, because sometimes, and unfortunately, sometimes I have created environments where my children don't feel safe to talk to me. So to know that there are other people who can be their safe place, especially until I got all of my craziness together, you know, I'm so thankful for that. And there's beauty in that, in being able to say, you know what, and I just want to say for any mom out there, it does not mean that you're inadequate. It means that you are aware and that you have the ability to step back and say, you know what, this is my bandwidth, this is my capacity. Let me know when to refer outside of me so that I can help my children grow and evolve. And I just think it's beautiful when moms don't feel insecure and they don't feel like somebody's stepping on their toes, but when somebody else can step in and be able to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody want to weigh in on that before I switch gears on us? Okay, we finna switch gears just a little bit. So there are women who long to be mothers, but God has not blessed them with biological children yet. Or maybe having a child is no longer possible, which is an emotionally devastating and difficult space to navigate. What advice would you offer women who may find themselves grappling with this season of life and with those emotions?
So I'm just going to say this because y'all know I have 7 children, but I wasn't always, you know, a biological mother, but I've had opportunities before I was a mom. I had opportunities to mother other people's children, whether it was at community centers that I was running, whether it was, you know, helping people who have children outside of me. And I think there's something beautiful when, you know, there are 2 types of moms. There are moms who have birthed children from their womb. And to me, there are moms who have birthed children from the womb of their heart. And I just honor women who, and I appreciate women who they may not have had children physically, but they have chosen to adopt children, or they have chosen to, become, like you would say, Dr. Tierney, a TT to somebody who they didn't birth. And I think it's beautiful when even, I know that it can be hard, because I also, even though I have children, I also know what it's like to lose a child, right? But I think there's something beautiful when a woman can say, you know what, my season of life, this is not what I was able to do in this way physically, but I'm able to mother and mentor and help another child grow and evolve. My mom, I saw my mom do it. I mean, even though my mom had me and my brother, I grew up watching my mom foster children who were children of her heart. And I just think that, there are times when you can, say, well, I may not be able to physically be a mom, but I can mother someone out of the womb of my heart.
So I sit with women every single day, having this discussion, and this may not go over well with everyone, but I will say that we as a Black community need to restructure how we have this conversation first. Because many women surpass the typical age limit of becoming mothers based off of societal beliefs and structures. You have to be in a relationship, you have to be married, et cetera, et cetera. And that does come from societal standards that says it's based off Christian values. But I've met some very unhappy, single, married women who are parents, who are doing it alone. And so my very first advice coming as a clinical therapist is reestablishing what your values and beliefs are as a woman. The values and beliefs that our parents gave and instilled in us, which ones do you want to keep? Which ones do you want to let go? And which ones do you want to revise based off of the woman that you are now? Amen. And then two, not to reshare what's already been said, that there are other ways to be a mother, which is there is adoption, there's surrogacy, there's other ways to once again to share that gift. And so I do think that the conversation has to shift about what motherhood actually means to us as Black women, because what we have seen in literature and research is that we have been the mothers of the church for decades. Yes, that type of narrative has not necessarily served us well. We have many women who have died alone and died without support and have died being motherless women because of this narrative. So I do think there has to be a shift in our church, in our churches, about what it means to still serve God, but it can be restructured.
I just want you to know I'm in your whole amen corner.
Absolutely.
All of it.
Dr. T, you asked that question about advice for women who may not be able to have children or even past that age. I was married 10 years before we had our son. And throughout those years, families have this thing that with young married couples, when are you going to have children? When are you going to have kids, right? Mm-hmm. And having to deal with and face that question over and over in that span of 10 years was almost devastating and crippling. We would go to the doctor thinking, oh, this is it. This is the time, I'm pregnant. And the answer would be no, not yet. And I remember the last time that we went through that, I broke down in the office and the doctor, I felt like unconsolable because 5, 6, 7 years in and still no baby. I finally just convinced myself that I don't even like kids, let alone want to have one. I don't even like kids. But what I began to do as I prayed was just to say, Lord, your will be done. And I began to just embrace the people, the young people that God would put in my path. Mm-hmm. And he gave me such a sensitivity toward their needs and just watching them and talking to them and listening to them. And finally, I was able to have my own child. But that time span in between, that 10-year gap, facing the questions from family members and church members, and just in my own mind trying to deal with what seemed to be an incapability, or even something that felt like a sentence, a negative sentence of some kind against my life because I couldn't have children. Well, as I prayed, as I said, and just prayed, Lord, your will be done, he gave me something else to focus on that filled that space for me in a very influential way in my life at that time. So I would say to any woman who is at that place, pay attention to the people, the young people, even that God puts around you, because they very well may need what you have to give, even when you feel dejected or feel in some kind of way inadequate. Know that you're not at all, but God is giving you something that you can give. And so search and focus in on that, because you are needed in the world in that aspect of mothering to somebody who's in your periphery.
Dr. T, can I add real quick before we go to commercial break?
Come on.
You know, purpose isn't exclusively tied to parenting, right? But it is inclusive of partnership. And so when you look at even the church, like not the building, but the body, right? You know, we've been waiting all these years for Jesus to come back, but he's supposed to come back for a bride of Christ, a church without a spot or a wrinkle. The church hasn't been married, but it got children everywhere. You just think about that. Jesus is going to marry the bride, the church, but we got children everywhere. It's all about your partnership with your purpose.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's one of the things, because I'm right there with you, you know, Deborah. I do not have children. And my thing is married, you know, and getting the question, when you gonna have kids? When you gonna have kids? You know, and 40 came up. Oh, she ain't gonna never have kids. Whoa. God is doing a new thing. You don't know. Hallelujah if I do. Hallelujah if I don't. You know, but for right now, I am the best TT, you know, that I am supposed to be for the children that God has brought along my path. Okay, so Sugar, we have got to go to break. I hate to do this. We have got to go to break. And I hope you grab those tissues, because when we come back from this quick break, we will be talking about the loss of a mother or our mother figures when we come back after this.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everybody. Come on back in, everybody. Now, for some of our viewers, they have lost their mothers or the mother figures in their life. And for others, like, let me just tell them myself, for others like me, we are on borrowed time with our mothers, grandmothers, great aunts, our mother figures, and we are bracing ourselves for that day God will call them home. What advice would you give for viewers who are grappling with the grief of losing a mother, or even just trying to prepare for the impending loss of a mother or a mother figure?
I would say, to get us started, is that it is important to to really understand what grief means. Grief means loss, and to understand what the loss of that person in your life has impacted in the various areas. How has that person contributed to your life? What does it mean to be able to talk to them, to have their words, their presence daily? And based off of those various different aspects, how do you want to honor their life? And I flip it the opposite way, because when you are trying to reconcile death and dying, we as a Black community, we typically have built these constructs of culture of we have our wake, we have our funeral, and we grieve for X amount of time, and then it's done. We're expected to move on. And that timeline that we typically give ourselves and our loved ones with these very hurtful and harmful colloquialisms, such as they're in a better place and they're gone on to be with the Lord and they're not suffering anymore, causes more harm than it does with healing. And so we have to be mindful that we want to honor those loved ones. And so the very first thing that I would say is that how do you want to honor their life? And create your own grieving process. And number two, we have to be mindful of those typical colloquialisms that we say in the Black community. I know you're trying to figure out what to say to the person standing in front of you, but it's better to say, and I give you two quick ones to say, how can I support you in your grieving process? And number two, what can I do for you today? Not asking how are you, that's not going to help. But those two are two better options than all the other ones that I just mentioned. And then number three, do I need any type of support as I'm grieving? Mm-hmm. Those three things are three of the best recommendations that I can give you therapeutically to help you in navigating the grief. Because to say that you're not going to grieve is a flawed type of reasoning. And then number four, look at what the grief cycle actually looks like. Mm-hmm. It is not some type of straight line. It is actually ugly. It is difficult. It is messy. You will take steps forward and take 3 steps back. You will be angry. You will be confused. You will have questions. And so that's why when going back to number 3, do you need additional support from a therapist to a grief counselor to a grief group to help you to navigate the process?
Absolutely. Dr. Tierney, you said, being on borrowed time. And I'm trying not to get really weepy because, sometimes we don't even want to think about that process when we are on when we feel like we're on borrowed time. I really don't want to feel like I'm on borrowed time, but I mean, my reality is that my mom is 77 years old. And my mom, she's spry and she's just in it to win it with me and my kids and everything. Everybody keeps everybody young, But when I think about everything that she means to me, and I think about where she is in her life now, and I think about, how I see her slowing down, even though I don't always talk to her about her slowing down, but I see it in front of me, and so it makes me realize, that I'm on borrowed time, right? But one of the things that I did with my mom, and I wanted to do it with her when she turned 75, and she ended up being in the hospital. And so while she was in the hospital, I did this, but I did an interview with my mom. And because I couldn't do it with her when she was out of the hospital and all we had was time while she was in the hospital, I had my phone, and in my notes, I wrote down a gazillion questions that I wanted to ask my mom, because I really didn't want there to be things that, like wisdom that I wanted her to impart, or things that I just didn't know about her, to make her be the woman that she is, the mom that she is, because my mom, when Dr. Bishop was talking about his mom, I'm like, dang, his mom and my mom sound like the same person. Because my mom, boy, being married for 10 years, divorced, paying her house off, raising her children, fostering other children, doing all the things. But one time I just said, you know what, I want to ask my mom some questions. So one thing, because sometimes we don't treat my kids don't treat me like I'm human sometimes, right? But I asked my mom some really hard questions. I asked my mom, what were some things that have broken her heart? I asked her things like, what are things that have made you proud of me specifically? I asked her, just about hard times, like, if there were things as a woman that she could go back and do all over again, different choices that she could have made or would have made or want to make, what would those things be? And I really just dug deep with her so that, when the time comes, for the Lord to take her home, that I feel like, one, that I'm maximizing my moments with her now, but that I'm really taking the time to really do some hard work with her and ask the questions that I'm just like, I just want to know, like, when you and my dad got divorced, like, what was that about? You know what I mean? Like, just all the things, just, and how she was able to just muscle through, being divorced, raising children, never remarrying and all that, and what that was like for her. And it was just a beautiful moment. And so I think that when you feel like you are on borrowed time, do your best to maximize your moments now, and also ask the questions that you really want to know the hard answers to. And some of those questions are not hard. Some of them are just really beautiful. Mm-hmm. So just maximize the moments that you have right now, knowing that because we are not promised tomorrow, right? So try not to leave things undone as much as possible, but really maximize your moments with the people that you feel like you are on borrowed time with.
Dr. T, I've been doing that from a different perspective with my son. So we've started having conversations around, you know what, your mama not going to be here forever. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. And so from every now and then, I'll bring that conversation back. And what I've noticed in him is that even when I make suggestions or we're just talking, he's tuned in on a whole different level. And as Charlotte was talking, I'm thinking I'm going to start writing letters to him. It's like on the envelope, one will say, when you're frustrated, open this. Mm-hmm. When you need a good laugh, open this. Oh, that's good. Because for him, I'm not quite 65, but I'm on my way. And I'm at a place of, this is the time you start having health challenges and all of that. And his other siblings are much older. They're married. They've been on their own for a while. So he's like an only child. And even though he's 35, he is a mama's boy. And so I think there's value in spending time to pour into him some of the things that I think maybe I missed, or some of the lessons I think he needs to learn, or just having conversation around things that we had never talked about before. Because, man, it's a hard thing to lose your mother.
Yes.
You're right. And so having lost mine when I was 6 years old, I never really got to know her. I've known her through other people. I've known her through how people say I'm like her. But there were so many things that I'd never get to ask her. Yeah. I'm grateful for how God has put so many other women in my life to mother me, and friends and sister friends and all of that. But I'm just taking this time to help him even before that time comes, because it will come.
Yeah. That is, you bring up such a good point. And Dr. Bishop, I'm actually going to throw this to you. In Deborah talking about, when it's her time, to go on we've been talking about mothers, but I want to switch and talk about fathers for a second. There are husbands and fathers who've lost their wives or the mothers of their children, and they're now kind of in a dual capacity of sorts, which can be especially difficult for fathers with young daughters. What advice would you give those dads to kind of help them navigate some of this?
Well, I think it's parallel to what you're asking and what was asked before, to understand love language. Like we do it with your wives or your spouses, your husbands. We always, evaluate, are we speaking someone's love language? And when you understand that you tear down that language barrier to speak, directly to the matter of their heart, then you will start to create memories, right? And one of the things I learned about life is that always choose memory over money, right? Memories over money is so important because you could be so transactional by just giving people this gift that really doesn't add value to the things that they care about or the things they love. But when you speak their love language, you can add value, which is a memory. Memory is so critical. It's so important to this thing called life. And with that, you can cherish it, right? I'm reminding myself of the loss of my mother. And we talked about we're all on borrowed time or living moment by moment. And both my mother and my father, they left me abruptly. So my mother literally stopped by my house. She stays around the corner because I had to move her closer to help with her needs. And she pulls up with my sister. And for those who have pursued their PhD, when you are in those final stages, getting ready to defend and you did chapter 5 and all that, you can't be disrupted. You are so locked in that everything else is just secondary. Well, my mom is laying on the horn in my front yard like, I got to see my baby. I got to see my baby. I'm like, Ma, I got to submit this by this deadline. But you know what? The Spirit of the Lord or the unctioning in my spirit said, no, you better make sure you go out there and speak to your mom. We went out there and we danced. While she sat in the car, she played the song, and then she went home and literally told my brother, who is also in need of some assistance, these last words. She said, is that Aretha Franklin? I want to watch that movie. And that was it. My brother thought she literally fell off into a sleep or a nap, but no, it wasn't that. So when you look at the loss of a mother, even the loss of my father, I was told by the Spirit of God again, hey, go stop by and witness your dad teaching Bible study. I was like, man, I'm going to go home and take a nap. And so those things where you can create memories, always take the advantage of making sure that you make a memory out of every moment, whether it's just a laugh, whether it's just, hey, Mom, give me a hug. Dad, show me how to do that handshake you used to do. Those things are part of things that you call memory. And that's what I would tell everybody. Create memory instead of just chasing money.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good. That is so good. And when we're talking about if you're the person that is you're on borrowed time, with your mother figure, if you've lost your mother figure, or maybe you are a husband or a father that has lost the mother of their children or their wife, it's important that we lean into that community of mothering that we talked about earlier, leaning into getting mothered a little bit or inviting women in to help you mother these children, that God has blessed you with, but now their mother, is gone. This is another reason why that community is so important. And to remember that we all need mothering, regardless of our age, regardless of, the season of life that we're in. Mothers and those mother figures are pivotal for our entire time that we're here on earth. So Sugar, we have laughed, we have teared up, and I've been crying over here off camera, and we have been reminded that we are deeply loved and we love deeply in return. Now we have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. I'll be back after this.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. The window to invest in Fanbase is closing. We've raised over $10.6 million of our $17 million goal. That means there's room for less than 6,370 people to invest in Fanbase for the average amount. The minimum to invest in Fanbase right now is $399. That makes you an owner in Fanbase today. Go to startengine.com/fanbase to invest. Why? Because current social apps have taken advantage of users for far too long, with content suppression, shadow banning, harmful racist content, and no real tools for monetization and equity. Fanbase has over 1.4 million users and counting, allowing anyone to reach all their following and monetize their content from day one. Social media is the new TV, and whoever owns the apps that distribute that content have the opportunity to own potential billion-dollar companies. While big platforms with uncertain futures are failing to serve their users, Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now, invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the next generation of social media.
Sugar, a mother's love is something that we may never be able to fully put into words. But what we learned today is that a mother's love can come from an aunt, a sister, a teacher, a mentor, or any host of women and female role models who are not our biological mothers. Whether you are a woman mothering someone else, or if you are being mothered yourself, our experts today remind us that we all need a mother's love, no matter how old we are. Thanks for watching us today, Sugar. See you next time.